The ring on my finger caught the morning light, scattering tiny rainbows across the hotel room ceiling. It should have felt like magic. Instead, I felt cold. My name is Clara, 29 years old. Architect, logical, the kind of woman who plans everything down to the last detail. I had planned this trip to Paris for 6 months. I had planned the dress I would wear to dinner. I had planned the exact way I would say yes when he dropped to one knee. And I did say yes. Liam proposed last night, under the Eiffel Tower. The lights were sparkling. A street musician played somewhere in the distance. He held my hands in his blue eyes wet with something that looked like love. And he asked me to be his wife. I said yes. It was perfect. Textbook perfect. The kind of moment women dream about their entire lives. But dreams have a funny way of turning into something else. When you wake up, Liam was still sleeping beside me. His breathing was slow and peaceful. His dark hair fell across his forehead. Even asleep, he looked like someone from a different world. That was part of his charm. Liam was a writer, mysterious, brooding. He carried sadness in his pockets like loose change, always rattling just beneath the surface. I thought I could handle that sadness. I thought my stability could anchor his storms. I was wrong. The photograph was in his jacket pocket. I wasn't looking for it. I was simply hanging his jacket in the closet, the way any good fiancé might do, the way any woman in love might do. But my hand felt something, a corner, a photograph. I pulled it out, and the world stopped. It was a woman, beautiful, French. I could tell immediately. Dark hair pulled back carelessly, strong cheekbones, eyes that seemed to laugh even in stillness. She was sitting at a cafe, the same cafe we had visited yesterday, the one tucked away on the Rue des Martyrs. Sunlight fell across her face like a blessing, but it wasn't her beauty that destroyed me. It was the way Liam looked at her. He was in the photograph too, standing behind her, leaning down, his face pressed against her cheek. His eyes were closed. His smile was small, almost invisible, but it was there. A smile I had never seen in 6 months of dating. A smile that belonged to something private, something sacred, something that had nothing to do with me. I stood there for what felt like hours. The morning light shifted across the ceiling. Paris woke up outside our window. I could hear the distant sound of traffic, clatter of dishes from the cafe downstairs, the normal sounds of a normal day. Nothing felt normal. My hands began to shake. Not violently, just a small tremor, the kind that happens when your body understands something before your mind does. The kind that happens when the ground beneath your feet suddenly isn't solid anymore. I looked at Liam sleeping. He looked peaceful, innocent, even. But innocent men don't carry photographs of other women in their pockets. The night they proposed, I sat down on the edge of the bed. The photograph was still in my hands. I studied every detail. The woman's hands wrapped around a coffee cup. The way she leaned slightly into him, trusting, comfortable. The small scar above her left eyebrow. The tiny silver earrings shaped like stars. She was real. She was specific. She was someone he had loved, maybe still loved. That thought landed in my chest like a stone. I thought about our first meeting, a literary event in London 6 months ago. I was there for work, designing a new library. He was there, reading from his novel. I remember watching him on stage, the way his voice dropped low during the sad parts, the way he looked at the audience like he was searching for someone. Afterward, we talked. He asked about my work. I asked about his writing. He told me he wrote about love and loss, the two things that never really leave you. I thought he was being poetic. Now, wondered if he was being honest. We moved fast after that. Dinners, weekends away, late-night conversations about nothing and everything. He told me he had lived in Paris once. He told me it was his favorite city in the world. He told me he wanted to share it with me someday. When he proposed, I thought he was sharing his heart. Now I understood. He was sharing a stage. and I was just an actress in his play. I stood up, walked to the window. Paris spread out below me, beautiful and indifferent. The Eiffel Tower stood in the distance, a reminder of last night's promises. Promises that now felt like paper in the rain. Behind me, Liam stirred. "Clara." His voice was thick with sleep. "Come back to bed." Didn't turn around. "Who is she?" Silence. The kind of silence that tells you everything. I turned then. He was sitting up, the sheets pulled around his waist. His face had gone pale. His eyes moved from my face to the photograph in my hand and back again. "Clara." He said my name like a warning, like a plea, like both at once. "Who is she, Liam?" He didn't answer right away. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I had seen 100 times. I used to find it endearing. Now I found it infuriating. The casualness of it, the way he could still perform while my world was breaking. "Her name is Elodie," he finally said. The name landed between us. French. Beautiful. Exactly what I expected. "Was she your girlfriend?" He nodded. Slow, careful, like he was navigating a minefield. "She still?" "No." His voice was firm. "No, Clara. She's not. She's..." He stopped, swallowed, looked away. "She's gone." It's gone. Such a simple word. It could mean anything. It could mean she moved away. It could mean she left him. It could mean 1,000 different things. But the way he said it, the weight in his voice, the way his eyes went somewhere else, somewhere far away, somewhere I couldn't follow. Gone meant dead. I felt it then. Not anger. Not yet. Something worse. Something that felt like stepping into someone else's story. Like reading a book where you think you're the main character, only to realize you're just a footnote. "You came here to propose to me," I said slowly. "In Paris, the city where you loved her. It's also the city where I lost her." His voice cracked. I wanted to replace that memory. I wanted to make something new. Something beautiful. With you. Replace. Not share. Not build together. Replace. I looked at the photograph again. At her smile. At his closed eyes. At a pure, unguarded joy on both their faces. I had never seen Liam look like that. Not once. Not on our best days. Not when we laughed until we cried. Not when he told me he loved me for the first time. He had been happy with her. Really happy. The kind of happy that leaves marks on your soul. With me, he had been comfortable, safe, grateful, maybe. But not happy like that. "I have to go," I said. "Clara, please." He stood up, reached for me. I stepped back. "Please. I love you. I chose you. I proposed to you." "You proposed to her ghost," I said quietly. I was just standing in the right place at the right time. His face crumpled. Tears spilled down his cheeks. He looked broken, genuinely broken, and for a moment I wanted to comfort him. I wanted to take it all back. I wanted to be the woman who could fix this, who could love him enough to heal him, could make him forget. But I wasn't that woman, and I was starting to understand that I never could be. I grabbed my coat, my phone. The photograph was still in my hand. I looked at it one last time. At her, at Elodie, at the woman who still owned his heart, even from the grave. Then I placed it carefully on the dresser, face up, where he could see it. "Find her," I said. "Not in a cemetery, not in a photograph. Find her in yourself. Figure out who you are without her. And then, maybe, someday, you'll be ready to love someone new." I walked out. The door closed behind me with a soft click. Not a slam, just a quiet ending. I stood in the hallway, my back against the door. Inside, I could hear him crying. Outside, Paris kept moving, indifferent and beautiful. I looked down at my hand. The ring was still there, catching the light, scattering tiny rainbows. It should have felt like magic. It just felt like a promise made to the wrong person. The hallway felt too small, too closed in. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to understand how I had gotten here, standing outside a hotel room in Paris, wearing an engagement ring that suddenly felt like a chain around my finger. I found a small courtyard behind the hotel, ancient stone walls covered in ivy, a fountain that no longer worked, benches worn smooth by generations of people who had sat exactly where I was sitting now, trying to make sense of their broken hearts. The morning was cool. October in Paris, the kind of weather that makes you want to pull your coat tighter and hold your coffee closer. I did neither. I just sat there, staring at nothing, while my mind replayed the last 6 months, frame by frame. I met Liam at a literary event in London. I remember the venue clearly. A converted warehouse in Shoreditch. Exposed brick. Harsh lighting. The kind of place that tries too hard to be cool. I was there for work. My architecture firm had designed the new library where his reading was being held. Someone thought it would be good PR for me to attend, to smile, to network. I hated networking, but I went anyway, because that's what I did. I showed up. I did the thing. I checked the box. Liam was the last reader of the night. The crowd had thinned. People were checking their phones, thinking about their trains home. Then he stepped up to the microphone, and something shifted. He didn't read like the others. He didn't perform. He simply existed in his words. His voice was low, almost intimate, like he was telling secrets instead of reading fiction. His novel was about a man who loses someone. I didn't know that then. I only knew that when he finished. The room was completely silent. No one checked their phones. No one thought about trains. We just sat there, holding our breath. Afterward, I approached him. I don't know why. I wasn't the type to approach strangers. I was the type to stand in corners, nurse a single glass of wine, okay, and leave exactly 45 minutes after arriving. But something pulled me forward. "Okay, Clara," I said. "I designed the library where you just broke everyone's hearts." He laughed. A real laugh. Warm and surprised. "Then I should thank you," he said. "The acoustics are perfect for emotional devastation." We talked for an hour. Then 2. The venue closed around us. Staff stacked chairs. The bartender counted tips. Neither of us noticed. He told me he was from a small town in Oregon. He told me he moved to London for a woman and stayed after she left. He told me he wrote because writing was the only way he knew how to breathe. I told him about my work, about the precision of architecture, the way every line must serve a purpose, about how I loved creating spaces where people could live their lives, fall in love, raise children, grow old. "You build homes," he said softly. "I build stories. We're not so different." I wanted to believe that. In the weeks that followed, we became inseparable. He would show up in my office with coffee, unannounced. I would find excuses to walk past his favorite cafe, hoping to catch him working. We fell into each other like two people who had been searching without knowing it. He was unlike anyone I had ever known. Men in my world were predictable. Architects, engineers, men who wore suits and talked about square footage and return on investment. They were safe, boring, manageable. Liam was none of those things. He forgot appointments. He lost his keys constantly. He would disappear into his writing for days, emerging hollow-eyed and hungry, like he had been somewhere I couldn't follow. I found it romantic then, the brooding artist, the tortured soul. I thought my steadiness would ground him. I thought my love would heal him. I was so arrogant. There were signs. I see them now, lined up like evidence, impossible to ignore. The way he never talked about his past. Not really. He would mention things in fragments. A childhood memory here, an old friend there. But the center of his story, the part that made him who he was, remained hidden. The way he looked at the Seine. We walked along it our first night in Paris. He stopped suddenly, staring at the water, and his face changed, softened, became someone I didn't recognize. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. He blinked, smiled. The familiar Liam returned. "Nothing. Just happy to be here with you." I believed him, the way he hesitated before the proposal. We were standing under the Eiffel Tower. The lights sparkled. The musician played. He took my hands, and for just a moment, he looked past me, looked for someone who wasn't there. Then he found my eyes, smiled, asked the question. I said yes. I never asked what he was looking for now. Sitting on that cold bench in the courtyard, I understood. He wasn't looking for me. He was looking for permission, for a sign, for some kind of blessing from the ghost he carried everywhere. I pulled out my phone, opened the photograph I had taken of his photograph. Elodie's face stared back at me. I started searching. It didn't take long. Liam was a writer. His life was semi-public. Interviews, articles, social media, posts from years ago. I found her name in an interview from 3 years back. The interviewer asked about love. Liam said, "I was in love once. Truly in love." Her name was Elodie. She was French. She was fire. She was everything. Was past tense. I kept digging. I found photographs from their life together. A trip to the coast. His arm around her waist, both of them soaked by waves. Christmas in what looked like a small apartment. Tinsel in her hair. His face buried in her neck. A picnic in a park I now recognized. The same park we had walked through yesterday. In every photograph, he looked alive. Truly alive. Not the gentle, comfortable presence I knew, but something brighter, wilder, like he had been set on fire and didn't care if he burned. I looked at photographs of myself with Liam. Happy moments. The weekend we spent in Brighton. The night he cooked me dinner and burned the chicken. The time we got caught in the rain and laughed about it for hours. In every photograph, I looked at him like he was my whole world. In every photograph, he looked at the camera. Not at me, always at the camera, like he was performing for someone watching from the other side. The realization landed hard. I wasn't his great love. I was his attempt to move on from his great love. I was the woman he chose because he couldn't have the woman he wanted. I was the consolation prize. Tears came then. Not the quiet, controlled tears I allowed myself in public, but ugly, heaving sobs that shook my entire body. I bent forward, my forehead touching my knees, and I cried for all of it, for the dream that wasn't real, for the love that wasn't mine, for the man I thought I knew but never really did. A woman approached, older, French. She sat beside me without asking, placed a hand on my back, said nothing. I cried harder. When I finally stopped, she was still there, still silent, still present. "Mercy," I whispered. She nodded, smiled slightly. Then she stood and walked away, disappearing into the Paris morning like she had never been there at all. I wiped my face, sat up straight. The architect in me took over. The woman who designs structures, who solves problems, who never leaves anything unfinished. I needed to know everything, not to punish him, not to hurt him, but because I couldn't live inside the question anymore. I couldn't spend the rest of my life wondering if I was enough. I needed to meet Elon, not her ghost, not her memory. Her. I needed to find out who she really was, what she meant to him, why she still owned his heart from beyond the grave. And maybe, in finding her, I would finally find myself. I stood up, brushed off my coat, looked up at the hotel window where Liam was still somewhere, probably still crying, probably still lost. I didn't go back inside. I walked toward the street, toward the city, toward the answers I knew I had to find. Behind me, the fountain sat silent. The ivy clung to ancient stone. Paris kept moving, different and beautiful, and Clara kept walking. Paris unfolded around me like a story I couldn't stop reading. Narrow streets lined with bakeries, grand boulevards crowded with tourists, ancient churches standing silent among modern shops. The city held centuries of love and loss in its stones, and I felt every one of them pressing against my chest. My phone buzzed. Liam. Again. He had called 17 times, sent 23 messages. I read none of them. What was there to say? What could he possibly offer that would undo the photograph, the history, the truth? I kept walking. By midday, I found myself at the cafe, the one from the photograph. Jude martyrs, small tables outside, wrought iron chairs painted green, a waiter in a black apron who moved with the casual elegance of someone who had worked there for decades. I sat at the same table, Elodie's table, the one where Liam had pressed his face against her cheek and smiled, like he had found something precious. The waiter approached. I ordered coffee. He nodded and disappeared. I pulled out my phone, opened the photograph again, studied the background. The window behind them displayed pastries, croissants, pain, chocolate. The same pastries I could see now through the same window. Nothing had changed. The cafe was frozen in time. Elodie was frozen in time. Only Liam had moved forward, dragging his broken heart behind him like a chain. My coffee arrived. I wrapped my hands around the cup, grateful for the warmth. The morning had been cool. Now the afternoon sun cut through the autumn air, casting long shadows across the cobblestones. I sat there for an hour, maybe two. Tourists came and went. Couples held hands. A man read a newspaper 2 tables away, occasionally glancing at me with mild curiosity. I didn't care. I was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere between the woman I had been yesterday and the woman I was becoming today. My phone buzzed again. Liam, I answered. Clara. His voice was wrecked, hoarse from crying or shouting or both. Please, where are you? Let me explain. Let me. I'm at the cafe, I said quietly. Her cafe. The one in the photograph. Silence. Long and heavy. Don't, he finally said. Please, don't do this. Do what? Sit where she sat. Drink coffee where she drank coffee. Breathe air she used to breathe. I paused. You brought me here, Liam. You chose this city. You chose this history. The least I can do is understand it. I can explain. You've been explaining for 6 months. My voice stayed calm, controlled. The architect in me refusing to crumble. You told me about your past, your losses, your pain, but you never told me about her. Not really. You never told me she was still inside you, breathing, waiting. More silence. I could hear him breathing, could picture him running his hand through his hair, the way he always did when he didn't know what to say. What do you want me to say? His voice cracked. That I loved her. I did. That I still love her? Maybe. I don't know anymore. I don't know anything except that I don't want to lose you. You can't lose something you've never fully had. The words landed hard. I felt them too. Felt their truth in my bones. Clara, that's not fair. Fair. I almost laughed. You proposed to me in the city where your dead lover haunts you. You carried her photograph in your pocket on the night you asked me to marry you. And you want to talk about fair? I was trying to move on, to heal, to use me. Silence. Is that what I was, Liam? A tool for your healing? A way to prove to yourself that you could love again? No. His voice broke completely. No, Clara, you were never just that. You are. You are good, stable, safe. You made me feel like I could survive, like there was life after grief. I love you for that. I love you for you, stable. Repeated the word like it tasted bad. Safe, good, all the things she wasn't. She was chaos, he whispered. Beautiful, consuming chaos. Loving her was like standing in a storm. I never knew if I would survive, but I couldn't walk away. I couldn't breathe without her, and with me. A long pause. With you, I can breathe. Breathing isn't loving. I hung up. The waiter appeared again. asked if I wanted anything else. I ordered more coffee. He brought it without comment, the way waiters do when they've seen 1,000 broken hearts at 1,000 small tables. I stayed until the sun began to set, until the shadows grew long and the air turned cold, until the cafe lights flickered on in the evening crowd began to arrive. Then I walked back to the hotel. Liam was waiting in the lobby. He looked terrible, red-eyed, unshaven, wearing the same clothes from last night, wrinkled and sad. He stood when he saw me, his whole body tensing like a man awaiting judgment. I walked past him toward the elevator. "Clara, please," he followed. "Just give me 5 minutes. Just let me." The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. He moved to follow. I held up my hand. No, the doors closed between us. Upstairs, I packed my bag, methodically, neatly, the way I packed for every trip. Underwear in a small pouch, toiletries in the clear bag, dresses folded with precision. The ring sat on the nightstand, catching the light, scattering tiny rainbows. I picked it up, held it in my palm, felt its weight, its promise, its lie. A knock at the door. "Clara, please." I didn't answer. I know I messed up. I know I should have told you about her before Paris, before the proposal. I was scared. Scared that if you knew the full story, you'd run. Scared that I'd lose you the way I lost her. Stared at the door, at his shadow beneath it, at the man who had asked me to marry him without ever really letting me in. "You didn't lose her, Liam. She died." "That's different. That's tragedy. I looked at the ring in my hand. "This is just fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of facing your grief. Fear of becoming the person you are without her." "You're wrong, am I?" Silence. "Tell me about her," I said quietly. "Really, tell me. Not the highlights, not the poetry, the truth." "Who was LOD?" Minutes passed. I thought he might leave, might give up and walk away. Then he started talking. "She was fire," he said through the door. "Everything about her was intense. The way she loved, the way she fought, the way she laughed. She didn't do anything small. Every moment with her felt like the most important moment of your life." I sat on the edge of the bed, listened. "We met in Paris. I was here for a month, writing. She was a photographer. She saw me in a cafe. This cafe, actually owned, walked right up to me, told me I looked sad, and she wanted to fix it." He laughed softly. A sad sound. I was LOD. She fixed things, people, situations. She walked into rooms and changed the atmosphere just by being there. Everyone loved her. Everyone wanted to be near her. "What happened?" "The accident." His voice dropped, became something else entirely. "Car accident. 2 years ago. She was driving home from a shoot. Someone ran a red light. She was gone before the ambulance arrived." Closed my eyes. Imagined it. Imagined him getting that call. Imagined the world ending in a single moment. "I didn't know how to survive," he continued. "For months, I didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't write. I just existed in the space where she used to be. Her family tried to help. My friends tried. Nothing worked until you." His voice cracked again. "You were so solid, so certain. You walked into that literary event and you knew exactly who you were, what you wanted, where you were going. I looked at you and thought, maybe I can learn to live again." I stood up, walked to the door, pressed my palm against it, wishing I could see him, touch him, believe him. "But you didn't learn to live with me," I said softly. "You learned to exist with me, to breathe with me, to be comfortable with me. That's not the same thing. I don't know how to do more than that. Then you're not ready for me." I opened the door. He stood there, tears streaming down his face, looking younger and more broken than I had ever seen him. The brooding artist, the tortured soul. Just a man, really. Just a man who had loved and lost and didn't know how to find his way back. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know. I held out my hand. The ring rested in my palm, catching the hallway light. Take it. He shook his head. I don't want it. I want you. You want the idea of me? The safety of me. The stability. Placed the ring in his hand. Closed his fingers around it. But you don't want me. Not really. Not the way you wanted her. He looked at the ring. At me. At the ring again. What do I do now? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Stay here. Stay in Paris. Walk the streets you walked with her. Visit the places you loved together. Sit in that cafe and let yourself feel her. Really feel her. Not the memory. Not the photograph her. That sounds like torture, maybe. I picked up my bag. Sling it over my shoulder. Or maybe it sounds like healing. The kind you actually have to do instead of running from. I walked past him. Toward the elevator. Toward the exit. Toward whatever came next. Clara. His voice stopped me. Will you? Will you ever forgive me? I turned. Looked at him one last time. The man I thought I loved. The man I might have loved if things had been different. I already forgive you, Liam. That's easy. I pressed the elevator button. The hard part is forgiving myself for not seeing what was right in front of me. For wanting a fairy tale so badly, I ignored the truth. The elevator doors opened. Goodbye, Liam. I stepped inside and let the doors close between us for the last time. The cemetery was on the outskirts of Paris, not the famous one. Not Père Lachaise, with its crowds of tourists searching for Jim Morrison or Oscar Wilde. This was a smaller place, quieter, the kind where real families buried real people they actually loved. I found the address through hours of searching. Old obituaries, social media posts from friends, a mention in a local newspaper about a photography exhibition dedicated to her memory. Elote Moreau died October 17th, 2 years ago, survived by her mother, Isabel. The cemetery gates were iron, old, and rusted in places. They creaked when I pushed them open. The sound echoed through the stillness like a warning. I wasn't sure why I had come. Closure maybe, or curiosity, or some deeper need to face the woman who had occupied Liam's heart in ways I never could. All I knew was that I couldn't leave Paris without seeing her, without standing where she rested, without somehow understanding the caretaker's cottage sat just inside the gates. An old man in worn clothing tended roses nearby. I approached him, showed him the photograph on my phone. Elodie Moreau, I said. Can you tell me where to find her? He studied the photograph. His face softened with recognition. Le petite photograph, he murmured. Oui, I remember. Beautiful girl, always smiling, even at the end. He pointed down a path lined with ancient trees. Follow this. You'll find her near the White Angel. Her mother visits every week. I thanked him and walked. The cemetery was peaceful in the late afternoon light. Sun filtered through leaves, casting dappled shadows on weathered stones. Birds sang somewhere distant. It should have felt sad, this place of endings. Instead, it felt almost gentle, like the world had agreed to be kind to those who could no longer feel. I found the White Angel easily, a small statue, its wings spread, its face turned toward the sky, and beneath it, a grave that stopped me cold. It wasn't the headstone that caught my attention. It was the woman kneeling before it. She was older, maybe 60, elegant in a simple black coat. Her hair was silver, pulled back in a loose bun. Even from behind, I could see the grace in her posture, the dignity in the way she touched the stone. Isabel, Elodie's mother. I stopped walking. This wasn't part of the plan. I had imagined coming alone, standing in silence, leaving without anyone knowing. I hadn't prepared for this. For her, but it was too late to retreat. She must have sensed my presence because she turned slowly, and looked at me with eyes that held decades of love and loss. For a moment, neither of us moved. I saw her studying me, assessing, a mother's instinct perhaps, the need to understand every person who approached her daughter's grave. Then she smiled, a small, sad smile that reminded me of something I couldn't name. "You are not French," she said. Her English was careful, precise. "You come for LOD. I nodded, swallowed, found my voice. "I'm sorry to disturb you. I didn't know anyone would be here. I can come back another time." She shook her head. "No, stay. Anyone who comes to visit my daughter is welcome." She gestured to the space beside her. "Sit with me. Tell me how you knew her." I hesitated, then walked forward and lowered myself onto the damp grass beside her. The headstone was simple. Elote Moreau, beloved daughter, fierce friend, light of our lives. Dates carved in stone that held to a few years. I didn't know her, I admitted. Not really. I only know her through someone else. Isabel studied me again. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, the kind of eyes that missed nothing. "You speak of Liam." I blinked. "How did you know?" The cemetery was on the outskirts of Paris, not the famous one, not Père Lachaise with its crowds of tourists searching for Jim Morrison or Oscar Wilde. This was a smaller place, quieter, the kind where real families buried real people they actually loved. I found the address through hours of searching, old obituaries, social media posts from friends, a mention in a local newspaper about a photography exhibition dedicated to her memory. Elote Moreau died October 17th, 2 years ago. Survived by her mother, Isabel. The cemetery gates were iron, old, and rusted in places. They creaked when I pushed them open. The sound echoed through the stillness like a warning. I wasn't sure why I had come. Closure, maybe, or curiosity, or some deeper need to face the woman who had occupied Liam's heart in ways I never could. All I knew was that I couldn't leave Paris without seeing her, without standing where she rested, without somehow understanding the caretaker's cottage sat just inside the gates. An old man in worn clothing tended roses nearby. I approached him, showed him the photograph on my phone. "Lodi Moreau," I said. "Can you tell me where to find her?" He studied the photograph. His face softened with recognition. "Le petit photograph," he murmured. "Oui, I remember. Beautiful girl, always smiling, even at the end." He pointed down a path lined with ancient trees. "Follow this. You'll find her near the White Angel. Her mother visits every week." I thanked him and walked. The cemetery was peaceful in the late afternoon light. Sun filtered through leaves, casting dappled shadows on weathered stones. Birds sang somewhere distant. It should have felt sad, this place of endings. Instead, it felt almost gentle, like the world had agreed to be kind to those who could no longer feel. I found the White Angel easily. A small statue, its wings spread, its face turned toward the sky, and beneath it, a grave that stopped me cold. It wasn't the headstone that caught my attention. It was the woman kneeling before it. She was older, maybe 60, elegant in a simple black coat. Her hair was silver, pulled back in a loose bun. Even from behind, I could see the grace in her posture, the dignity in the way she touched the stone. Isabel, Elodie's mother. I stopped walking. This wasn't part of the plan. I had imagined coming alone, standing in silence, leaving without anyone knowing. I hadn't prepared for this, for her, but it was too late to retreat. She must have sensed my presence because she turned slowly and looked at me with eyes that held decades of love and loss. For a moment, neither of us moved. I saw her studying me, assessing, a mother's instinct perhaps, the need to understand every person who approached her daughter's grave. Then she smiled, a small, sad smile that reminded me of something I couldn't name. "You are not French," she said. Her English was careful, precise. "You come for Elodie?" I nodded, swallowed, found my voice. "I'm sorry to disturb you. I didn't know anyone would be here. I can come back another time." She shook her head. "No, stay. Anyone who comes to visit my daughter is welcome." She gestured to the space beside her. "Sit with me. Tell me how you knew her." I hesitated, then walked forward and lowered myself onto the damp grass beside her. The headstone was simple. Elode Moreau, beloved daughter, fierce friend, light of our lives. Dates carved in stone that held too few years. I didn't know her, I admitted. Not really. I only know her through someone else. Isabel studied me again. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, the kind of eyes that missed nothing. "You speak of Liam." I blinked. "How did you know?" Another sad smile. "Because you are American. Because you look at his photograph with pain. And because he has not visited since the first anniversary. But he sends others. Friends, family, people who need to understand." She paused. "You love him?" It wasn't a question. I thought I did, but the words came out before I could stop them. "He proposed to me 2 nights ago, under the Eiffel Tower. It was supposed to be perfect, but it was not perfect." I shook my head, pulled out my phone, showed her the photograph I had found in Liam's pocket. Isabel took the phone carefully, held it close to her face, and then her expression changed, softened, crumpled, just slightly, around the edges. "This was taken a month before she died," she said, quietly, "at her favorite cafe. He came to visit her between book tours. They were so happy then." She traced her daughter's face on the screen. "Look at her. Look at him." They had no idea that everything would end so soon. I watched her grief and felt my own dissolve into something smaller. What right did I have to be heartbroken? I had lost a fantasy. She had lost a daughter. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I shouldn't have come. This is your grief, not mine." Isabel reached out and took my hand. Her grip was warm, strong. "You came because you were hurting. That is never wrong." She looked at me directly. "Tell me, what did Liam tell you about my daughter?" I thought about it, tried to remember his exact words. That she was fire, that loving her was like standing in a storm, that she was chaos and beauty, and he never knew if he would survive. Isabel nodded slowly. "That is how he saw her. It is not wrong, but it is not complete." She turned to face the headstone, began to speak in a voice that carried years of memory. "Elodie was fire, yes, but fire warms before it burns. She was chaos, but chaos creates as often as it destroys. When she loved completely. When she fought for justice. When she laughed for everyone in the room, not just herself." I listened, held her hand, let her words fill the spaces where my imagination had built a ghost. "She was difficult," Isabel continued. "I will not pretend otherwise. She stayed out too late. She loved the wrong man before Liam. She broke her own heart more times than I could count. But she always got up, always tried again, always believed that tomorrow would be better." Tears ran down her cheeks, but her voice never wavered. The day she died, she had just finished photographing a children's hospital. She spent hours with sick kids, making them laugh, making them forget they were in pain. That was Elant. Even at the end, she was giving. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. This woman, this stranger, she was giving me the greatest gift, the truth about the woman I had feared and resented and misunderstood. Liam could not handle her death, Isabel continued. He tried. He came to the funeral. He held my hand and promised to honor her memory. But then he disappeared, into his work, into his grief, into whatever places he could hide. He told me He couldn't survive without her. He couldn't survive with her either. Isabel's voice was gentle but firm. That is the part he does not understand. Elodie was not easy. Loving her required strength he did not have. When she died, he did not lose a perfect love. He lost a complicated one, and he replaced the complications with a fantasy. I thought about Liam, about his poetry, his sadness, his beautiful words about love and loss. I thought about how easy it was to romanticize the dead, to smooth away their rough edges, to turn them into saints. He made her into something she wasn't, I said slowly. And then he tried to love me in a way that had nothing to do with who I actually am. Isabel squeezed my hand. You understand? We sat in silence as the sun sank lower. The angel cast a long shadow across the grave. Somewhere, a bird sang its evening song. Why did you come here? Isabel finally asked. What did you hope to find? I considered lying, considered giving her a polite answer about closure and healing. But she deserved better. They both did. I wanted to hate her, I admitted. I wanted to find something wrong with her, something that would explain why Liam couldn't love me the way he loved her. I wanted her to be the villain so I could be the victim. Isabel nodded slowly. And now, I looked at the headstone, at the dates, at the simple words carved in stone. Now, I just wish I could have met her. Isabel smiled, a real smile this time, warm and sad and beautiful. She would have liked you. You have strength. You ask questions. You do not run from hard truths. She paused. You came here to find a ghost. Instead, you found a woman. That takes courage. I didn't feel courageous. I felt hollow, empty, like something had been scraped out of me, and I didn't know what would grow in its place. What do I do now? I asked the same question I had asked Liam, the same question I seemed to ask everyone. Isabel stood, brushed grass from her coat, looked down at me with those eyes that held decades of wisdom. You go home. You build your life. You stop measuring yourself against the memories. She offered her hand. I took it and stood beside her. My daughter was not your competition. She was just a girl who loved and was loved and died too young. That is all. She pulled me into a hug, unexpected, overwhelming. I stood frozen for a moment, then collapsed into it, crying against her shoulder the way I hadn't cried since I was a child. She held me, rocked me, whispered soft words in French I didn't understand but somehow felt. When I finally pulled away, the sun had almost set. The cemetery had grown dark and quiet. Thank you, I whispered. Isabel touched my face gently. Be happy, she said. That is all any mother wants for any child. Be happy and be brave and do not let ghosts steal your life. She walked away then, peering into the gathering darkness, the way the woman in the courtyard had disappeared this morning. Leaving me alone with Elodie, I turned to the grave, knelt down one last time. I'm sorry, I whispered, for making you into something you weren't, for being jealous of a dead woman, for all of it. No, my voice sharpened. You were supposed to remember her, really remember her, the good and the bad, the laughter and the fights, the way she left her towels on the floor and burned toast and stayed out too late. You were supposed to let her be human, so you could be human too. He looked at the photograph in his hands, at Elodie's face, at his own smile, frozen in time. I don't know how, he whispered. I know, I softened. That's the tragedy, isn't it? You don't know how, and I can't teach you. Nobody can. You have to learn it yourself. I walked past him to my door, unlocked it, turned back one last time. It's the ring, I said. He looked down at his pocket, pulled out the diamond, held it in his palm. What do you want me to do with it? Sell it, keep it, throw it in the sand? I shrugged. It doesn't matter. It was never really mine anyway. That's not true. His voice broke. I loved you, Clara. I still love you. In my own way, your own way. I nodded slowly. That's exactly the problem. Your way of loving isn't enough for me. It might never be enough for anyone until you figure out who you are without Elodie's ghost standing behind you. I stepped into my room, started to close the door. Clara, wait. He caught the door with his hand. Just tell me one thing. If things had been different, if I had told you about her from the beginning, if I had been honest, could you have loved me? Really loved me? I thought about it, about the early days, about the laughter and the coffee and the way he made me feel seen, about all the moments that felt real, even if they were built on something fragile. Yes, I said quietly. I think I could have. I think I did, for a while. Then why? Because loving someone isn't enough. I met his eyes. You have to be present. You have to be honest. You have to show up with your whole self, not just the pieces that fit. And you couldn't do that. You were always somewhere else, loving someone else, even when you were standing right in front of me. He didn't argue, couldn't argue, because it was true and we both knew it. Goodbye, Liam. This time, I closed the door, and this time, he didn't knock out. I leaned against the door for a long time, listening, waiting, but there was only silence. And then the soft sound of footsteps walking away. I slept that night. Actually slept. No dreams, no tears, just darkness and rest and a strange piece of decisions made. Morning came gray and soft. Paris rain tapped against the window. I packed my bag for the last time, checked the room for anything forgotten, and walked out without looking back. The airport was chaos. Tourists and business travelers and families rushing everywhere. I moved through it calmly, the architect in me appreciating the efficiency of the design. The way crowds could flow if the spaces were built right. My flight boarded. I found my window seat, watched Paris shrink beneath me as the plane climbed through clouds. And then, somewhere over the Atlantic, I finally cried. Not for Liam, not for Elodie, not for the dream that died in a Paris hotel room. I cried for myself, for the woman who had almost settled, who had almost accepted less than she deserved because it looked like enough from a distance, who had almost become a footnote in someone else's story instead of the main character in her own. I cried until there was nothing left. And then I stopped. 6 months later, I stood in a different city. Berlin, gray and cold and beautiful in its own way. A new project, a new team, a new life. The building was an old factory, waiting to become something else. My job was to imagine what that something else could be, to see possibility in decay, to find structure in chaos. I loved it. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I opened it. A photograph. The cafe on Rue des Martyrs. Same green chairs. Same pastries in the window. Same beautiful light, but different. In the photograph, Liam sat alone at Elodie's table. No ghost beside him. No photograph in his hand. Just him, a coffee, and an open notebook. The message said, "I'm learning." Stared at it for a long time. Felt something shift in my chest. Not love, not longing. Something quieter. Something like hope. I typed back, "Good." Then I put my phone away and turned back to the factory, to the work, to the life I was building with my own 2 hands. Outside, Berlin stretched gray and cold. Cranes dotted the skyline. Construction everywhere. A city always becoming something new, just like me. I thought about Paris sometimes, about the lights on the Eiffel Tower, in the photograph in Liam's pocket, in the woman in the cemetery. Sweat had taught me more in 1 hour than 6 months of love had managed. I thought about Isabel's words. Be happy and be brave and do not let ghosts steal your life. I thought about Elodie, the real Elodie, the one who was fire and chaos and beauty, and also just a girl who died too young. And thought about Liam, learning to sit with his grief, instead of running from it. Learning to remember without freezing. Learning, maybe, to become someone capable of real love. But that wasn't my story anymore. My story was here, in this gray city, in this old factory, in the lines I drew and the spaces I created and the life I chose for myself. My phone buzzed again. A work message this time. Questions about load-bearing walls and natural light. I answered it, smiled, kept walking, because that's what strong women do. They walk, they build, they choose, and sometimes walking away from a dream come true is the bravest thing you can do. The plane landed. The factory waited. The future stretched wide and unknown, and Clara kept walking.